My mom said, I need you to be nice to your brother when he gets here tomorrow. I'm an only child. I stared at her like she'd completely lost her mind, because last time I checked I was an only child, and had been for all 16 years of my entire existence. Mom, what are you talking about? I asked, but she just gave me this weird tight smile and said, we'll discuss it later, honey, before walking away like she hadn't just dropped the most insane sentence of my entire life. I chased after her into the kitchen and said, no, we're going to discuss it right now, because you can't just say something like that and walk away. But she picked up her phone and suddenly had a very important call she absolutely had to take. I found my dad in the living room watching TV, and I stood directly in front of the screen and said, Dad, what is Mom talking about with this brother situation? And he did this thing where he looked at me, but also looked right through me at the same time. Ask your mother, was all he said before physically moving me out of the way of the television. The next morning, I walked past the guest room and stopped dead, because the entire room had been transformed overnight, with a new bed and dresser and posters of some sports team covering the walls. I ran downstairs where my mom was on the phone whispering, yes, we have everything ready for him, before she spotted me and said, I'll call you back, and hung up immediately. Mom, who was that, and why is there a whole bedroom that wasn't there yesterday? I demanded, and she just said, don't worry about it, sweetheart, which made me worry 10,000 times more. At school, my best friend found me spiraling at my locker and said, you need to calm down because you sound unhinged right now. But I grabbed his shoulders and said, my parents are replacing me with some other kid, and everyone in my family is in on it except me. I spent every class imagining the worst scenarios, like maybe my parents gave up a kid years ago, and now he was coming back because I turned out to be a disappointment. Or maybe my dad had a whole other family, and his real son was coming to take my spot. I texted my mom during lunch saying, please just tell me what's happening, and she responded, we'll talk when you get home, with a period at the end, which felt like a death sentence. When I walked through the front door, both parents were sitting at the kitchen table with serious expressions, and my mom said, sit down because we need to talk before he gets here. And my dad said, this is going to be hard to hear, but we need you to understand why we did what we did. Just tell me the truth because I can't take this anymore, I said, and my voice cracked like I was a little kid again. My mom grabbed my hand and said, we never meant to hurt you by keeping this secret, and I pulled away because I didn't want comfort, I wanted answers. My dad said, about a year ago, we made a decision that would change our family forever, and I braced myself for him to finally admit everything I'd been dreading. We should have told you from the beginning, but we wanted to wait until we knew it was really happening, my mom said with tears forming, and I said, until what was really happening because you're scaring me. My dad opened his mouth to respond, but right at that moment the doorbell rang, and both my parents froze and looked at each other with panic. He's early, my mom whispered, and my dad stood up and said, just please trust us and be nice. We'll explain everything after, before walking toward the front door with my mom right behind him. I followed feeling like I was walking toward my own execution, and when my dad opened the door, I saw a woman in business clothes holding a clipboard, and my heart completely stopped because the lanyard around her neck said County Child Services, and I realized my parents had actually called someone to come take me away. I started backing up and said, what is happening right now? And before anyone could answer, a small kid stepped out from behind the woman with a backpack way too big for his body, and I completely lost it. Are you serious? I shouted at my parents, and everyone turned to stare at me, and I pointed at this random child standing in my doorway and said, this is the kid you're replacing me with? You're kicking me out for a 9-year-old? The caseworker looked extremely concerned, and my mom's face went completely white, and she said, what are you talking about? My dad finally seemed to understand what was happening, and he stepped toward me with his hands up and said, buddy, nobody is kicking you out. We're fostering Jace. He's moving in with us, not replacing you. And I stood there feeling like the dumbest person on the entire planet. Jace had been standing quietly by the door watching this entire meltdown unfold. I gave him my best embarrassed smile as he looked at my face for the first time. He stared at me for a long moment and then looked at my parents and said, let me guess, you thought you'd surprise him with a new brother? And when nobody answered, he just shook his head and said, yeah, my last family tried that too.